Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. This episode is brought to you by AutoRescueTools.com and Isaac Rodell. If you are looking to get into module programming, but you are not sure what kind of laptop you're going to need or how to set it up for programming, Isaac is your guy. He can set up laptops specifically to do control module programming for specific brands with partitioned hard drives and all the software that you're going to need to do this. He also sells key cutting equipment, scan tools, and other diagnostic equipment. I bought some stuff from him in the past and the support is phenomenal. So I highly recommend checking out the website. Again, that's AutoRescueTools.com. The link will be in the show notes. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I will be your brief host this week on the show. I am getting ready to head out of town to Vegas for Apex and SEMA, and so this week's episode will be brief, but I'll share a couple interesting tidbits from some stuff I've been doing recently. Wanted to get an episode out there, and then also let everybody know if you're going to be in Vegas for the show this week, first week in November 2024. Hit me up. You can either do that via the email you'll find in the show notes here, or you can shoot me a message on Facebook, or you can just come find me. We'll be on level 1 of the Venetian where Apex is being held in the area that's been labeled, as far as what I can tell on the floor map, as Podcast Row. There'll be several other automotive related podcasts there, as well as the ASOG and a few others. The place is huge. I've actually never been to Apex or SEMA, so I'm looking forward to the event. I think it's going to be a fun time. From what I hear, it's huge, it's massive, it's tough to see everything while you're there, but I'm pretty excited. We'll be recording live. So, hey, if you've wanted to get on the podcast, maybe haven't had a chance to, hasn't worked out, come find me, hit me up. We will get you to the booth. We will get you on the show. We are also going to have t-shirts, sweatshirts, and stickers for the podcast if you're interested in any of those. But at the very least, just come say hi, hang out. Should be a good time. Anyways, for this week on the show, again, this is going to be rather brief. I got a lot going on trying to get out of town, but I'm going to share something with you here that I've been doing lately. If you remember back, it was a couple years ago now, I had an episode which was based off of a presentation at Vision for Tech Talks regarding AI in the automotive diagnostic world, and some of the things that I just been kind of playing around with, specifically with ChatGPT in regards to the day-to-day in automotive diagnostics. Now, the AI world has exploded, and I actually think in the public eye, the hype may have worn off just a little bit, right? There was so much excitement around it in the beginning, and there still is, but it's like everywhere you turned, there was something AI. And that was about the time that I put out the presentation. Again, I was caught up in it too. The stuff that was coming out and the capabilities and the jump ahead in technology was so crazy that I wanted to know, like, okay, how is this going to affect what we do and what can we do with it right now? And there is a ton of stuff. I mean, even outside the automotive world, it's absolutely crazy. And the jumps ahead in technology still are amazing. It's like, every month there seems to be some new capability or something different that this can do. And I still think it's going to be a big game changer across the board, but specifically for what we do and the day-to-day and how can it be helpful. I'm going to list here a couple of the different things that I use on a daily basis that's really helpful in regards to AI systems. And specifically, I use ChatGPT a lot. I have a subscription to the site. It's like $20 a month. You can use a bunch of it free. You don't even have to have a subscription. You're limited on some stuff. I think the amount of usage that you have and the response time and a couple of the different features, like the newest version. But for me, the $20 a month is completely worth it. I'll explain why. But I've kind of had to play around with it and filter some stuff out that I thought would be, really helpful and I would be using all the time. You try it out and it doesn't quite work the way that you think. And then other things have become like daily that I pop this thing open and I use. And that's kind of what I want to share with you. But going back to what I mentioned, I had a presentation at Vision that was basically my introduction to these large language models, ChatGPT. I'll put a link to the episode in the show notes here. So if you want to check that out and go through the stuff that I did at that point a couple of years ago at Vision. I also did a 4-hour class later that fall on a more detailed version of what you could do with AI and automotive. Haven't really done a whole lot with it since in the classroom style instructing portion of it. But again, been playing around with it in my personal life, been playing around with it in regards to my work life, and it does have a lot of really awesome features. So the first one that I use quite often, and this was one that I had referenced in some of the earlier presentations that I've done, is the fact that you can attach a PDF file, and you can attach a lot of stuff. You can do stuff with images, you can do stuff with audio files, web links. Again, the capacity for this has expanded quite a bit. So you can attach a file to your chat with ChatGPT and then have it do a number of different things based off of the file that you give it. And when I was originally doing this, I was working with plugins. You don't even have to do that anymore. It's got a little paper clip right on the chat bar. You just either upload from the computer. You can link it to your Google Drive if you want. It can steal all your information, and that is one thing to consider is what you're putting in here. It's not necessarily going to be, protected or contained to just you. There's a potential that information is going elsewhere. So do be cautious of what you're sharing with it, but you can attach any file that you want. And that opened this up quite a bit because the base training that these large language models have, although incredibly impressive, quite often fails or comes short when we're asking really detailed questions on specific things, especially regarding what we're doing in the automotive diagnostic field, right? There may be a particular scan tool application or a particular vehicle, and you can ask it questions and, it's okay at the answers, but it's not really quite at the level of, an expert or professional who's been doing this for years. It may not really help you much or move the needle much. But if you were able to provide the large language model with some more detailed information, like maybe a PDF that has the specific info that you're trying to reference, it can immediately assess and give you answers. And this was one of the big things that I had in the presentation that I did at the training course in Orlando last fall. It was actually about a year ago now that I did that. And being able to pick what information that you give it and then ask it questions is really cool. Now, here's the one that I have consistently used over and over again is if you have a PDF of some sort that is an operations manual or an instruction manual for something that you're working with, let's say a scan tool platform, let's say Otis, or let's say a software, right? Like maybe we're good with the automotive side of things, but we're using some new software, like QuickBooks, for instance. I use QuickBooks with my business all the time. And I want to know some specific things, or I'm trying to do something within this software or within this scan tool platform. Again, like Otis. It's not the most user-friendly thing in the world. You can put the owner's manual, you can attach it. Again, it's super easy. Just hit the paperclip and upload the PDF. And it's a 300 page, 600 page document, depending on what you're working with. And then you can ask it questions based off of that. Now, there's an argument to say that, hey, Control F in the PDF is going to do the same thing, that you could find the same information. Yes and no. I found it's very helpful to be able to ask it questions of, hey, I'm trying to do this. I don't know where to go. Using this information, can you help me out? Now, as this thing's capacity has grown and the training has grown, there's certain programs and systems that it already has a pretty intimate knowledge about. I was trying to do some audio editing with Audacity, and that's not my background. I've been doing the podcast for almost 5 years now, but like audio specialty stuff, I kind of wing it a lot of the time, and I'll Google and I'll watch YouTube videos. But turns out ChatGPT has access to like the specifics on what you click in Audacity, and you can even put an audio file in and have it do an analysis on it and help you to try to clean certain things up. That's really cool. But if it doesn't have access to it, you can connect it to whatever information source that you want it to reference, and then you can have it work with you to try to get to a solution. And you can do this with other things as well too, system description operation within service information. You can put that in there and have it help you out, have it kind of create test plans. That was one thing I had originally envisioned using this a lot for. I didn't for a couple of reasons, and I'll actually reference those at the end of this discussion. Towards the end of this podcast episode, haven't really used it so much for like building test plans and referencing service info specifically. But one of the other things that's been really useful for me as a business owner, and this could take all kinds of different formats. You wouldn't necessarily have to be a business owner to utilize this, but really anybody that needs to create some documents for all kinds of different reasons, you could utilize this large language model to help you generate a document. And I've done this within my business to help me create things like a job offer or like a process for something that happens in the business that I want detailed out. There's a number of different ways there's a number of different things that you can use this for to create a template for you. And that's kind of what I do. It's like, I'm like, hey, I need a template for a job offering. Here's the type of thing that I'm looking for. Can you generate me one? And then you can either have it edit it based off of your preferences, or you can just copy it, put it into a Word document, and then do the editing yourself, right? Change the specific details to the things that you want, but it gets you a really good starting point. And it saves me personally a ton of time when I can do this. So like, just get me the bulk of it. I'll go through and tweak it. And then I have a very professionally, grammatically correct, and that's a big one for me, put together document that I can use within my business, and it saves me a ton of time, right? That's not one of my strong suits, is like writing detailed documents about things. I can do it. It takes me a long time, and there's a strong argument to say that someone with more experience in that could create a more coherent and well thought out document than I would, depending on what this is for. This really helps me to get that done quickly, and then I can tweak it the way I want, put it together, boom, I'm done. Saves me all kinds of time there. And I want to share one of the other big time savers for this. And this is actually why I thought about talking about this as an episode. Again, I use it. It's not every single day. This is one that I use every single day. And I've actually encouraged my team to do the same thing. We do a lot of diagnostics, obviously. When we complete the diagnostic, one of the important things that we have found, and I've always known this as long as I was in the field, but that we get everything about, or as much as possible about the diagnostic and our process and our findings and our recommendations written down onto the repair order, the invoice that's going to the customer. Now, in this case, for us, it's repair shops, but in a lot of shop conditions. It's the customer. But we have run into challenges where our written description of what we did, what we found, what we recommended was not specifically detailed enough. And, there's been multiple situations. Hey, sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes what happens is the customer's fault. And it doesn't matter if we didn't document it properly, it's on us. And I'm willing to accept that, right? Even if what happened, right? If we said replace X component and we walked out front and we said, hey, you need to put this component on, but we didn't specify which one, if there's multiple on the vehicle, customer didn't remember what we said and replaced the wrong one. Well, that's on us if we didn't document it correctly, right? And so that was kind of what spurred this for us to get more detail to make sure that we were getting everything on these invoices, because they were a little vague. But hey, in the middle of the day when you're trying to move along and crank out work and get from job to job, writing a story about everything that you did is difficult. And I'm the first to admit that I would skimp on that and just write down as little as possible, diagnose this concern, found this, replace this, without a whole lot extra detail. Now, again, the problem is time in our world, right? We're under the gun. We're trying to get from job to job. We got a lot to do.
Hey, have you ever been faced with the challenge of sourcing, installing, and programming a used control module in a vehicle? I know a lot of us have. It seems to be happening more and more often today with the volume of control modules on vehicles, the cost of some new ones, or even the availability of new control modules. In some cases, used may be the only option. So what do you do here? I strongly recommend checking out SJ Auto Solutions and Tommy Oliva. Tommy offers a cloning service for used control modules to make these things plug and play for the vehicle that you're working on. In a lot of cases, he is also able to source the control modules if you're unable to locate one for the vehicle that you're working on. But once you get connected with Tommy, he's going to offer fantastic support from start to finish to make sure that that control module is going to work in your application. He's also got tech support that he offers through his website, along with some free resources there as well on information about used control module programming. So make sure to check out SJ Auto Solutions. I can't recommend that enough.
But we need that detail, not only for future reference, but also for professionalism. And it adds value to the service that we're offering if we put in every single detail of what we did, because the customer might not always know all of the steps that we took to get to a conclusion or all of the testing that we did. But writing all that stuff down is time consuming. It takes up quite a bit, especially if you're trying to do it in a mobile app maybe, or in your van or out at the car. It's going to be a time consuming part of the day, and it adds up at the end of the day if you're taking 20, 30 minutes to write up that perfect invoice every time. Okay, so what do we do? How do we utilize this here? This is what I've been doing with ChatGPT. Now, again, I have the paid version. It's $20 a month. You go into ChatGPT and there is a talk to text option. And this is a mobile app. I do this on my phone. I think you can do it on the computer too. But on the phone, there's a talk to text. You press the button and, well, actually, let me back up a step. Within ChatGPT, you can have different chats and you can save them. And within a specific chat, you can ask something specific of ChatGPT. And that's endless too. You can ask it some really detailed stuff, or you can ask it to react in a certain manner, right? You can tell it like, hey, I'm going to ask you questions, but don't give me the direct answer. Ask me questions and get me to answer it myself, right? And it will do that. It's like, teach me in the Socratic teaching method. And it's actually a really useful tool if you want to learn something without getting the direct answer. It'll do that. And so you could give it instructions that you want it to operate on within that individual chat. There's overall preferences that you can give it through the settings too. But what I'm doing in this specific chat that I reuse every day is I say, hey, I'm an automotive diagnostician. I'm diagnosing vehicles. I'm going to give you a summary of what I've done to this vehicle, and I need you to rewrite it in a grammatically correct, professional manner so that I can take that and put it into the invoice, and it will clearly establish what the concern of the vehicle is, what's been done to the vehicle by us in our testing, and what we're recommending as far as the fix. So you give it that instruction up front. Say, hey, this is what I'm going to be asking of you. So then you do a talk to text and you say exactly what you were setting out to diagnose on the vehicle, right? The customer's concern, what you did to duplicate it or to find it, the testing methods that you used, what you found, the measurements, the codes, whatever it is, and then what you found and what you're recommending for them to do after you found it. Now, for me personally, and you might be different than me, but for me, I can explain that out loud probably about 20 times faster than it would take me to write it all down. Just that talk to text. And even then, it probably wouldn't be grammatically correct or necessarily professional. I tend to shorten things up when I write my descriptions for invoices. I always have. I just made it like abbreviated when I would write up stuff for tickets, even when I was in a shop. Again, just to kind of save time so I can get on to the next thing. I can make money fixing cars, not by writing up descriptions on invoices, but I can talk pretty fast. And this thing's pretty good at just picking up your words, even eliminating the ums and the stutters and the breaks in speech. And it puts it into the chat bar. You press go. It will take that. It will rewrite it into a very coherent, professional, exact description of all of that stuff about the diagnostic. You take that, you can copy it, you put it into your invoice. For us, we're using QuickBooks, but whatever format you're using, it's easy enough to take that text and paste it into the description for the invoice. All of this takes like maybe 45 seconds to do. And I'm on to my next one. And I have, like, honestly, for me, some of my team is better at it than I am. But for me, these are the best, clearest descriptions of what's being done on these vehicles that I've ever had working as a mobile technician. And it's way faster too. So this is kind of the reason that I want to talk about it, is like, this is something I use every single day that is so worth the $20 a month that I pay for this. And it's covering our butt in a lot of cases because we have all the detail there, but it's also adding that value to the service so that the customer has that documentation. Now, of course, we can include pictures and all that other stuff on invoices, which is important. And we have canned jobs for things that we do repetitively, but for the diagnostics, that doesn't work, right? We may have it broken down into like network diag or trans diag or, drivability, but the specifics of each car are going to be different. And this is just a really fast way. So I wanted to share this with everybody because why not? If it saves you time and it gets more accuracy in what you do, let's do it. Now, why might I choose to do this? And why might I not choose to use ChatGPT or other AI models within my day-to-day? What are some of the things that I've stayed away from? And I also want to share this. And this came after, doing the class and really looking at the potential future of how this is going to interact with our lives, again, outside of the automotive too. It's going to be everybody, but hey, this is the world that I live in, is that when it comes to the real creative thought processes and the critical thinking thought processes that we use in a day-to-day, I still think it's a good idea to do as much of that by yourself without help from one of these as possible. If it's a time-saving device and it's really not necessarily atrophying a muscle, and you could argue that it is, like my document writing ability is pretty low. at this point, and it's not going to get any better the more that I use this. Like if I had to type out one of these things myself, like a job offer or a description for a diagnostic, I'm going to be pretty weak at it. It's weaker than I've even been in the past because I'm not doing it. I'm offloading that task to an AI chatbot now. But I don't think that is that critically important, right? Machines have done that for us for a long time, right? Like if I had to wash my clothes by hand, I'd be in a world of hurt, but I don't really care. That's not something that I really need to fill my skill sets with, because there's so many other cool things that I can do because I don't have to wash my clothes by hand, right? It's about picking what you can offload and atrophy that skill or ability and be okay with it. This is something where I'm totally fine with it because it increases my productivity, increases my accuracy, adds more value to the job, and I don't feel like I'm really losing a skill. But if I'm going to start to rely on this thing for creative processes or critical thinking thought processes, like actually diagnosing the vehicle, I think that's where it could really hurt you. And I foresee that happening in the next 5 to 10 years. I think this sort of stuff is really going to be front and center in our world. And it's going to help out a lot of people and it's going to fix a lot of cars, but it is going to absolutely destroy people's ability to get through things by themselves. So it's coming. It's going to be there, if not already in certain situations. And so just ask yourself, if you're using something like this, what skill, what am I giving up in order to gain this quick fix, jump to the conclusion, not have to think, just rely and offload a process to a large language model. So that's kind of where I'm going to wrap this one up. I know it wasn't a super long episode or detailed, but I did want to share that piece about using it as far as writing out diagnostic descriptions. I think it's well worth it. Huge time saver. But as you're getting more and more involved with these things, if you are, just ask yourself, what skill am I giving up? I think it's an important consideration about integrating AI tools into your life now and in the future. So that's all I got for you today. We'll wrap it up right there. I want to thank everybody for listening. I'm excited to see everybody out in Vegas. It's going to be a great time. But with that all the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.